Hi everyone, I'm Milind Gupta. I'm from ABS Engineering College, Ghaziabad. So, I'll be taking a session on my competitive programming journey on how I achieved master, and I was the first one to qualify for the ICPC Asia West finals. So, initially, when I graduated from school, So, like I didn't have any interest in like, the PCM subjects. So, as a result, I didn't do well in my JE as well. So that's how I landed in AVS College. Someone's mic is on, so you can please mute. Okay. So initially, I didn't have any programming experience as well as I didn't do any programming courses in my school. So my first semester, I didn't have like any programming subjects as well. So I usually I spent my time exploring like how was college life and all. So I didn't get much exposure regarding it, but yeah, I got like there are plenty of clubs and all. In my second semester, like I got introduced to like the programming concepts like C++ and etc. So that's when I started like my programming journey. But I think so around the mid of second semester, the COVID started happening. So like uh, I did learn a bit from my college, but I started exploring on myself as well. So initially, I was just learning from my colleges, but like through our seniors and like we had some meetups in our college, in our hostels. So we got introduced to like there was some stuff related to competitive programming. So I did a bit of exploring myself, and I got to know that there was like the Codechef platform, which had some long challenges, which were like which required some puzzles and all. So I did have an interest in solving puzzles and a bit of like mathematical problems. So initially, when I just jumped to the code chef and I started solving, so like I remember like the easiest problem, it took me around like 1.5 hour just to take the input and all, as I had no knowledge on how to do, and I didn't usually like took part in clubs and all to get much exposure, as I started exploring on myself only. But as but initially like I saw that it was too much time taking, so I left it. And like around for 3 to 4 months I was just learning programming and didn't do any like competitive stuff. But I remember like around my third semester I take it started taking CP seriously a bit. And from my friends and my colleagues I got introduced to like uh, there was this thing called ICPC. So I started preparing for it with my friends. Like it was in like a week or two. So at that time we were like we explored stuff like we would see how others used to practice, or like how to solve problems and all. Like initially I only did the long challenges, and like I remember I used to sit around 8 to 9 hours just banging my head and trying to solve a problem or all. But as I approached like the first round, which was the ICPC preliminary, we came to know that there were pretty good seniors in our colleges as well. And so we obviously didn't qualify even the preliminary. And that's when I like it hit me like I need to take this stuff more seriously, as it's not just a child's play, right? So I started exploring a bit from myself, like apart from my college. I did bit of searching on. I started reading the Codeforces blogs. I joined a bit of uh, communities on Discord. I made a few friends, and I uh, I used to watch videos of like Second Thread and Colin Gardner, if you have heard of these names. Like I used to just watch them how they used to approach problems on like code forces, and how they were how they approached the problem, like what were the tricks. Like I used to just sit there just staring at a problem. So how should I approach it? So I started CF like around, I would say around third semester, and I would just stare there and just see how they would just like write out some random like equations and all, and I used to have no idea like what they are doing, how they are doing. So then I saw that long challenges and short contests were like a bit different, as we only had a limited time. Like we
Hello.
need to solve. Yes. Yeah, so we had a limited time, like we had 2 hours to solve like 4 to 5 problems. And so how to like optimize stuff, like how to like filter out the topics which would be like used on that problem, like how to like come up with this equation with these
Ah,
observations. So I used to like initially just wrote down all the like the topics that I know, and just try to filter out like will this work. And so I then got introduced to, I think, uh, some
Thank
YouTube channel. I don't remember the name. So yeah, Vivek Gupta. So Vivek Gupta had a very good video on like how to approach the problems. So there he told about like how to like filter out the topics, like how to manage your time. And so that was really helpful for me, like it got me a little bit guidance on like how to approach problems and all. Although apart from it, I tried various.
ఏంటి
uh,
ఏం కావాలి నీకు?
can everyone mute
ఆ?
please?
అంటే ఆఫీస్ రమ్మంటున్నారు.
माइक ऑफ कर लो.
So yeah, like I tried various I tried various of techniques. Like if some of guys you have watched like second that video, like he used to practice by telling that he would just pick a topic randomly and he would just filter out problems based on it and start solving until he like got a grasp of it. Then there was
वैसे तो हम अपना विश्लेषण कर रहे
uh,
हैं बस ये कुछ और ही है
can you someone please mute? I think so someone is still on mute.
और भी
I,
कुछ हुआ क्या लास्ट टाइम से हम्म, अच्छा तुम्हारे मतलब सीनियर है ना अच्छा अच्छा उमर से जूनियर
sure.
ये ऐसे ले
हाँ मतलब एज
मेरे पास कहाँ है?
ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि किसी फ्रेशर को भले ही उम्र में बड़ा हो छोटा हो
Hold on,
सीनियर
Jinder. Can you please mute yourself?
I think she's not listening.
Sir, you
Okay.
should remove them from meeting.
Okay.
अपने लोग रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगा के रखे 6 बजे खुद जाओ
Just give me a minute. Uh,
हमारे तो बगल में
yeah. So, like I said, like I tried various of techniques. Like second thread told us about, like he used to just pick a topic and he would just start solving problems on it randomly, and he would do so until he got a good grasp of it. Then there was Colin Gallen. He used to say that what he was used to do is like just pick a problem like from his previous contest, and he would just solve them. So that's if he would if he was unable to solve them, he would look at the editorial and like he would try to learn the new topics at when. So like these different techniques were taught by like different teachers, and like I tried all of them basically. And most of the time I like explored like how is what suits me, right? As everyone has a different way of approaching problems and all. So like I spent most of my time exploring, as I didn't take much part in college clubs and all, and I used to just spend like 6 to 7 hours just practicing problems. So that's when it was like the COVID time, and like we had all the time to ourselves, as there was no college, only like online classes and all. So like I still remember around like third year when the ICPC was getting closer, and I just got back with my team, and we like started preparing more seriously, as we wanted to like qualify for the ICPC. So I remember we practiced like 1 to 2 contest, like we used to get virtuals like the gym contest and all. So it was, I think, time I had become an expert. It was like a pretty big moment for me, as our college only had like 3 to 5 experts, and through this my seniors also got to know me. Like there was a kid who was like a junior, and he got expert. So I had like my few of my classmates also had become expert at that time. So we started preparing for ICPC, and we somehow managed to qualify for the Kanpur. And like we were so excited for it, as it was like first time for us. And so like these offline contests helped me a lot. Like it um helped me interacting with new peoples and all. Like I got to know a few people when I went for the on-site for the Kanpur. We did qualify for Amritapuri as well, but we didn't get the chance to go there. So when we reached Kanpur, and like we met all the people, and the next day there was contest, and like expected, like it was our first on-site contest, and we did horribly there. Like I still remember we were the second last team in the standings. So it was like pretty bad for us, and we were devastated, of course. We realized that we didn't practice hard enough. At when when I met people there, I searched their names on Codeforces, like how they were doing, and I realized like most of them were candidate masters or masters. So around third year, like we did horribly, and like we got back to college. I remember at 2 to 3 days I didn't do any code forces and all. I thought like it was not for us, and weren't as good as like, some people were. But like 2 3 days later, like uh, 2 3 days later, like I got back, and started doing like I got back, and I realized like maybe if I try harder, I could maybe get a better rank, and let's say maybe qualify for the Asia regionals. So I started practicing on my own. So initially, what I did was like I solved a random bunch of problems. Like I would pick a rating like 200, let's say if I'm a 1500, I used to pick problems from 1700 to 1900, and I used to I used to solve a bunch of random problems, and I remember I used to spend for 3 to 4 hours just solve stuck on a problem getting no idea. And in the meantime, I also realized that this was not the most effective, but I got the observation maybe I need to try to write more stuff down. So what I did was I used to just write down all the observations I had related to the problem, and whether it was necessary or not necessary, I just tried to do something about it and just not randomly stare at a problem. So this helped me a lot as uh, in the meantime from I reached expert to candidate master, and it was thrilling moment for me. Could you just give me a moment?
अब वैसे तेरा पेट ठीक नहीं है साले उसकी रोटी देखता है ना कैसे बनती है ढाबे की उस वाले ढाबे की
कुछ तो
एक
जानना
तो वैसे
चाहिए।
ही अब रिस्क साले ने उस वाले में
Sorry for the disturbance. So, like, uh, I still remember around the end of my third year, I think that was when I reached the candidate master. I remember it was I was overjoyed as I thought I was the first one from my college to achieve that rating, but I didn't know around 4 to 5 years earlier someone had already reached that rating, but from that time on nobody had reached the candidate master. And so when I reached candidate master, I realized maybe we could qualify for the Asia West. And so I took time for it. I uh, took around 2 to 3 months, and I picked a bunch of juniors from my college, and we started preparing on a regular basis. So but the major challenge that was around this time was that the COVID period was over, and so we were back to our colleges. And so giving enough time for solving problems was a really hard matter, but you could try and figure out a way to just squeeze some time for it. I remember we used to have this problem solving classes, and they used to just pick some random hacker rank easy questions, and they would just solve that one question for 2 to 3 hours, and I realized it was just a waste of time for me. So what I would do was just take my laptop with me and just sit on the back of a seat and would do just random code forces problem for it. Or if I had some other classes our compulsory courses, I would just pick a problem for my phone and would just write down the observations for in my copy or pen in my copy. And so I paid minimal attention to our classes, and when I went back to our hostel, I used to just use those observation and just coded out the solution. So in the meanwhile, I also used to skip a bunch of classes that I thought it was not as necessary, and it I thought I should give more time to competitive programming. So that's how I managed to solve like around 2000 problems and all. So when we got back to setting our goals for ICPC, so we used to a day on a weekend, like maybe a Saturday or Sunday, and we would just pick a contest, and we would just solve problems randomly on it. Not randomly, I like we used to like divide our stuff, like how should we practice, how should we like, what should be the steps, how should we approach problems, how we divide problems. Like some people have like stronger on binary search, some are strong in DP. So like that we used to divide our problems, and we would just like try to at least sit for 5 hours. Like ICPC problems has a different kind of structure, so it requires us to like sit for 5 hours continuously. And what I see nowadays is like people struggling to like sit for 2 hours only, as they thought like if I had done like three problems in 1.5 hours, so I don't think I could like approach the next problems or do it in half an hour. So I would just say like maybe you could try and like filter out the observations, at least like what you had during that time, as you might not know that the next problem, it might be like just a few observations and like you could have achieved a better rating. So we used to just sit for 5 hours, and post that 5 hours next day we used to solve like the upsolved problems, as we had fixed the target, like we would need to do these seven problems in order to qualify. So we so the day of ICPC came, and like if you guys remember, so ICPC preliminary were kind of like on the easier side, although we did horribly on that as well, as we like was slow on 2 to 3 problems, and for both Amritapuri and Kanpur. And I remember like maybe we had lost a chance to qualify, and like I was quite devastated, like how, like why it was just not a day. And like I around 1 or 2 weeks later I like got the mail like we had qualified for both of us due to our like being the only team from our college. And I was like, okay, that's unique. So we were like, okay, let's not get set back. Like we did horribly, and we need to figure out what were the issues with our like team coordination, why we weren't able to solve these easy problems. So we like practiced like every 4 days, used to pick a contest like 5 hours long, and we used to just solve it. And we would focus more on our team coordination, like how would we split. And maybe if someone was not getting an observation, or if someone remains stuck on a problem, we could like help others, like maybe they could figure out uh, like what was the issue in our code, what was the issue in our logic. And so like we tried to help ourselves, and that was like that is the most important part like of the team coordination. So we did manage to go to the Kanpur, and it was like a reminiscence, like last year we had got like the second last, and maybe what if we again performed horribly, and what if we like this was my last chance for me, like what if I didn't do well. So I tried to remain calm, but yeah, so at the end I realized like if I won't, it won't. But I need to stay calm and just like focus on solving as many problems as I could. And so I remember I just went there and just focused on normal problem solving. And like we were stuck, we were like doing pretty good, as we somehow managed to solve 6 problems on that day. And like I thought like it would be enough, but like in the last hour maybe I realized like maybe we need a one more of a problem to qualify. So like I kept getting wrong answers on it, like 7 to 8 wrong answers. We were completely stuck as why was there. So we kept reading the problem statement over and over again, and that's when I clicked like we needed an an extra tape stayed for that DP. I remember it was like a Dijkstra with DP, and that was a 4D DP. So initially, I was doing a 3D DP on it, and the moment we got AC, we were like super excited as we realized maybe there was a chance like we would qualify for the Asia West. And when the results were out, we were like excited as we cleared our goal and we would surely qualify for the Asia West. And so we went for the Asia West, which was held in Mathura. And we were like, okay, maybe this was our limit, and we would just normally like solve problems and all. We did pretty well, and although we didn't qualify for the world finals, it was a bit sad. But I was like, okay, we were the only team to first to qualify for the Asia West from our college, and like that was a pretty big achievement already. So that was basically my ICPC journey. And like this, I used to take part like not only on Codeforces and Codechef. I did like other uh, coding questions on other platforms as well. Like I used to take part in Google Kickstart and all. Like Google Kickstart was like pretty damn lucky for me, as at the end I got a global rank around like 50, between 50 to 100. So it was pretty good for me. Apart from it, I solved questions on like Newton schools and maybe some other platforms like Dojo, CSES, and AdCoder. And I just love solving problems and all. Then there was SPOJ and all. And this was the time I was candidate master, like maybe it was like around mid of my fourth year, if I remember. Like maybe this was my limit, and maybe candidate master was all I could achieve, and maybe a master was a bit too far for me. But and that's when I changed my like solving problems. Like initially, as I said, I used to solve problems based on like if I was a 1900, I used to solve problems between 2100 to 2300. So I changed a bit from solving problems that way, as I just removed all the rating prediction systems and all, and I just started up solving the problems I had in contest. And I just don't. I just usually don't look at ratings, and I just pick the next problem. And whether I knew the topic or if I don't, I just do the problems. And if I get for like stuck for too long, maybe a day or two, I would just pick up the tutorial and like read it and maybe learn the topic. So that was the basically the approach I followed while trying to move from candidate master to master. Like it helped me a lot. Like the current rating standards of code forces are maybe they are a bit accurate for like the lower rated problems, but I would say they could be misleading for like the higher rated problem. As I remember, like there was a div 2 contest, and I had solved four problems on it, and there were next two problems were only remaining, and the next problem had like more summation than the last problem, but I was unable to get like some observations regarding it. So I just jumped it, and I just jumped to the last problem. And at the uh, at the end of the contest, like before like 10 to 15 minutes or so, I was able to AC that, and I got like 100 or 150 plus from that. So I came to the conclusion like maybe I just solve should just focus on solving the next problem. And maybe if I get stuck too long for it, I should just skip to the next problem. And uh, I realized like maybe this helps me get like a new approach for it. So what usually happens is when we like stuck on a problem or something, like we would just constantly like stuck on an approach or something. So that would like waste most of our times or all, and we would just like waste like 2 to 3 hours and all. So I realized like maybe if I jump to the next problem and just like start from a fresh new approach, I would maybe able to solve it and like maybe get a new perspective regarding the old problem that I had solved. And like these were like most of my achievements. And I still remember like uh, the day I received master. So it was basically one day before my NSEM, like my fourth year NSEM university exams. So yeah, I didn't care about like giving in exams and all. Like I just loved solving problems. So I didn't care if next day I had my like end semester exams and all. I would still give the contest either way. And like this was my basically my 3 year long journey for competitive programming. Although in this long journey I had a lot of setbacks, and I was like it took me around 3 to 4 years, I would say, to achieve master rating. And there are a lot of people who would have achieved that like in a low span of time. But I would say like everyone has a different journey. So like there are different approaches that people follow, like for solving problems, or like just how do they approach the problems. So that was basically it. So now we could like jump to the Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, how do you manage CP with your current job? I'm also going to enter this phase. So like it's a bit hard to manage like CP with the current job scenario, as it is not like college that I could just solve problems during my job work hours, as there is a set like there's a set deadline for it. Like we are getting task assigned to it. So what I would usually do was just come back from my college and would uh, just like maintain a like a timetable or something. Like this is 3 to 4 hours, I would just like solve problems and all. Although it can be a bit tiring, like all already you are coming from a 9 hour shift, and then a 4 hour brainstorming session could be a like quite painful. But I would say like if you try to maintain a consistency for it, so you could like maybe in a like month or so you it would be a normal for you. Can you please break down how can I master DP? From learning to practice stuff, particular website practice registry, some insights as well is from it, and probably you can answer the best. So for DP, what I did was like I remember I learned it from Aditya Verma. And oh, and like I had taken a like course initially, which was like the Coding Ninjas competitive programming. So through that, I got a like a little bit idea of what all topics I should do. So it was good, but like uh, it didn't help me like how to like approach new problems and all. It did get me an idea like what all topics were present in the CP, but didn't give me much insight about like what problems should I practice next, and if I am not able to solve, if I'm not able to grasp DP after like solving those 10 problems, how would I? What problems should I do or all? So like I apart from the course, I just search for YouTube and all. So one important point I would like to share is like there are a bunch of educators you can find on YouTube. Like if I would just pick like Aditya Verma, Striver, Labbabbar and all, you can just pick any. It doesn't matter who you are learning from. It just matters like could like whom do you consider would like explain you the best? And it is not necessary like for a, like if you just start learning from Striver and you would just like learn all topics from it, you could like pick a topic from him, and for second topic and all you can just learn from Aditya. For DP, I would suggest like Adit that Aditya Verma has some great videos on YouTube. Like these are some 3 to 4 year old videos, but I consider them very great. And apart from it, I also learned from Colin Gallen as well. Like for starters, you could pick Adit Verma. For later on, like some advanced DP tricks and tips, you could go through Colin Gallen and all. And for websites, I would just say like uh, apart from Codeforces, I would say that AdCoder has a pretty good bunch of great problems, and CSCS as well. Like I remember, I there was this AdCoder educational DP contest, and it consisted of all the DP problems that you would ever need to like solve some DP problems, apart from like the very hard one, of course. But I consider those to be like a gem. And apart from it, like the old ad coder contests are like some great problems are there, and I would highly recommend it while solving those. Should I skip classes for CP? I would say, I mean, if you don't find those necessary, you can skip, and like they would have like consequences as well. As I remember, I wasn't allowed to sit for my exams because I skipped too many classes. So you need to like maintain like how much should I skip, will it affect my like overall CGPA
तुमको
and
पता
all.
है तुम्हारे ने यहाँ आने का लिंक
Can you share a code sources profile? Yes, surely. What development you did in college and what tech stack you work on? So in my college, like I didn't do much development. I remember I doing development in like fourth year, and so like for front end I did React, and for backend I think I did Node.js and MongoDB. And currently I am my tech stack is Java, and uh, I'm working as a backend developer. I'm not able to solve questions sometimes of 800 rating. I'm in third semester. I just started CP 2 months ago. I'm thinking of give up what to do. So Priyanshu, I would like to say is like it's not like I have never experiences like I just give up. Like what is there? Maybe it is not meant for me on all, and maybe like I should try something else. So like whenever I'm not able to start like do problems, or maybe if I had a bad contest and all, I would just like maybe close code forces and do some like divert my mind and all. Like I used to just pick up maybe a TV series or watch a movie, or I would just like eat some delicious food, or I would just go to sleep. So I'm able to clear my mind. So one important thing was like whenever I tried solving problems, I used to like approach it with a fresh mind. Whenever I get stuck for too long, maybe I'm approaching the problems too like I'm giving up too easily, or maybe something else. So like one thing I suggested right now was like just try to write down all the observations you had regarding that problem. Maybe they are related to it, maybe they are not, but at least you will be able to like grasp like maybe are you able to make all those observations or not. Like that is very important factor. Maybe you are not able to like come up with all the observations that you require for that problem, and or maybe you don't like uh, maybe you haven't learned a particular topic regarding it. So like when you are stuck on a problem for too long, maybe you could just like there's a section on code forces where you could just see the tags for it. So then you could just see the tags, and like maybe those tags would help you like on what direction should you think. Should I think of as a TP problem? Should I think of it as a greedy, or maybe it is just simulation and etc. And if you are still stuck on it for too long, then maybe you could just jump to the editorial. And like I would just say, like, don't do the 800 rated ones, they are kind of useless. Maybe you could just start from the 1000 rating ones. And like 800 rated problems, like they require just a particular observation for it, so they won't be much helpful. So maybe you could start like from a 1000 rating or so. How much time do we have to spend on the problem? Like it completely depends on you. So like when I was like specialist or expert, I used to like spend around 4 to 5 hours, maybe 3 to 4 hours around on a, and if I got like if I was too if I was stuck for too long, I just like I just used to watch like what all tags were there on that problem, or maybe I haven't like learned a topic which I require for a problem. So I won't say like give up too easily on it, but I would highly recommend like uh, maybe you should try like spending initially. You could try spending like 3 to 4 hours. It depends on like what problems rating are you solving. How do you arrange your whole day knowing that today's contest from giving contest to solving contest problem? Please share your strategies. So one thing is like whenever there's a contest on a particular game, I don't solve problems usually. So there's a reason for it, as I consider like after like one thing that like distinguishes itself from like solving in a contest and like upsolving is that in a contest you have a limited time, and so you are super focused on solving a particular problem, and so your brain would like get exhausted at a much faster rate. So after solving like after giving a contest, I usually just like go to bed early, or maybe just do some other things, and just like uh, just don't absolve at that moment exactly, until and unless like if I'm like solving a problem E, and like I had made most of my observations, and like I had 2 to 3 observation, and maybe if I had like half an hour, and so I could solve this problem in that time. At that moment, like I generally like solve the problems, but generally I just don't. I just like sleep early, and next day I used to like pick a problem for solving. Why did you choose to product engineering role instead of entity, and you are targeting product based companies? Thanks. So, like, my role currently is an backend developer. So, like, the job description mentions it as a product engineering role, but I'm currently part of the backend team, which is kind of similar to the SD role. So, yeah, there, like, my company is not that big, so there's not like a big distinction between these roles. And so, yes, I am of course targeting product based companies, fine. And maybe not fans, like it would be great if I could get also a good startup as well. As I entered into the software development, I realized like they had they also required a kind of problem solving which was like a bit different, but it also required a lot of like brainstorming and all, which was a bit different from like we usually solve on CF. But I would say that like doing competitive programming has like helped me a lot in this aspect as well. Is CF important for interviews as most contest questions have become more ad hoc and observations questions? Yeah, I would say that CF is important. Maybe not for interview, but it does help in like the general problem solving and all. Like these ad hoc and these observation questions are nothing but like a puzzle problem and all. So like the few interviews that I had given, like they did ask me a bunch of puzzle problems and all, and I used to answer them very quickly as well. So like I would say I used to say like they did help me. They did help me in like solving those like puzzle and all related problems. And for interview perspective, I would say they don't expect you to like solve like a problem diff to C or maybe a diff to D, but they consider like how are you approaching those problems, like what are the observations and all. And as I said, my like when you're doing a problem, you could just write out the observations and just tell them. Like in an interview, you need to like speak out your mind, and so I would say that it did help me like get uh, like a better head start. And other than that, like if you have some great like CP achievements, you could uh, you could get like a referral I would say much easily. How much mathematics is important for reaching CM? I would say like maybe like 11 to 12, maybe 8 or 9 maths is more than enough. As I would say, I'm not also so good at maths as I still get stuck on like probability problems and all, and maybe some hard combinatorics problems. But I would say like the basic, maybe like the probabilities, like contribution to some, and like permutations and combinations, and maybe like some basic of mathematics is more than enough. They don't require you too much advance of mathematics, I would say. Where was the Asia West finals? It was in Mathura. Sometimes I don't get any intuition in diff to see it during contest. Nothing strikes in my mind. The answer would be probably be easy. After seeing that, I regret so many times. How could I miss this? Like, I would say I have experienced this a lot. So, like, it completely depends on a problem. Like, if it is a ad hoc problem, it could be like anything else. So, it could require you to see like if there's a like there is some pattern to it, like are there any strategies that you need to know. Like most, like for ad hoc problems you can't be like fully prepared that you have learned these particular topics and now you are sure that these ad hoc problems would be like you could solve it like just using these. So what I would suggest is like looking for a pattern or something. So in the like after reaching maybe an expert or CM, I realized like maybe these panters are sometimes not so obvious. So what I would usually do was like pick some of the sample test cases and I would just try to like maybe try to figure out a pattern, maybe some observations. Maybe they are not so clear from the problem statement, but like maybe through the samples, or maybe you could just write a brute force for it to see if there's a particular pattern from it. Like there are a bunch of questions there, like for n is equal to something you need to print a particular pattern. And so you could start by just writing maybe a brute force and seeing if there's any particular pattern. Like these kind of strategies are mostly helpful me in, I would say, like the game theory problems and all. And apart from it, like these are mostly like puzzle problems, and so I would say like solving more of these are the only strategies that you could solve. And apart from it, like if you need some upsolving for it, like I would say like the CF has most usually these kind of problems, and like AdCoder doesn't have many. And maybe you could also like trying maybe for a bit longer, as I already said, like if you're not able to solve a problem, you could first look at like the tags for it. Or apart from it, you could also like there now in the recent editorials there's this hint section, so you could like probably start watching out from the hint. Or there are some like great comments if you manage, like in the announcement section or maybe in the editorial, like maybe the editorial solution is not so obvious to many participants, but like some random solution or maybe some other solution is what people find more intuitive. So maybe you could also look at that as well. Do you used to give practice in all websites or mainly on Codeforces? So mainly I used to give problems. I mainly used to practice on Codeforces only, and apart from it, I used to solve on like had coded. Apart from it, I didn't usually use any platforms for upsolving practice. But yeah, I like if I did like if the contest were like maybe a week later or so, I would just like search for some other websites. Maybe I could give a contest and all. So, but my like approach would be to solve for code forces or at coder. And apart from it, like when I used to do like topic wise solving, like if I got to know that this was a particular topic needs to be solved for the next problem, so I would just learn the topic. And like if you have seen like on the CP algorithms website, on the bottom section there's a bunch of problems related to that topic, so I would just go to those websites and solve. And apart from it, there's also a website, uh, usako.com. So it also has a like vast section of all the algorithms and all. So there also they have provided a bunch of problem solving like you could use to like solve problems. Like I don't usually like randomly search, but like through those platforms I got to like know of other platforms that had like great problems regarding that particular topics, which is better practice strategy rating wise or topic wise. So as I said, I have followed both. And I would like for a phase like the rating wise problems did help me, and the topic wise learning would I usually do it when like I got to know like there's some particular topic that I uh, definitely need to learn. So like initially in my like specialist or like maybe my expert days, so like there's a like a set of like DSA topics that like you of course need to know, like binary search, maybe DP recursion, etc. So maybe you could, for those particular topics, you could do the topic wise. And apart from it, I would say like the rating wise is also a good strategy. But and as you like aim for higher and stuff, like these rating guys would be not so helpful. And maybe you could just then solve on upsolving the contest only. Can you suggest some good resources for combinatorics? Like for combinatorics and math based question, I would just say like the ad coders is a good platform. And like the old ad coder problems were are usually very great, and I would highly recommend it solving, as the C, D, and E, as I remember, are some great problems you could do. Like they might be in Japanese also, so you could maybe use the Google Translate and all, but like they are some very nice problems for it. And for combinatorics, you could like just use the filter section of Codeforces. And like for resources, I would say there's this YouTube channel by the name Code and Code, if you some guys have heard of it. And like there are not a lot of topics that you need to know initially for the combinatorics. Like uh, as I remember, like the basic like combinations and permutations. And apart from it, as I remember, there's this contributed contribution to sum, and maybe like expected sum and probability. And like these are majorly the topics that you like need to know, learn maybe initially. And yeah, sir, I will be able to get even people or not as I'm practicing, but I cannot get the answer correct on my own. Yeah, I'm sure, like, what do you mean by I cannot get the answer correct on my own? Can you please clarify a bit? What are your future targets you wish to achieve? Thanks, Keith, for asking. Like, of course, I would like I do target like the FANG-based companies, or maybe a good startup would also be like helpful for me. And like from a CP perspective, maybe I could try for maybe IM or maybe Grandmaster. It's a bit skeptical, but yeah, I try to aim for it. Sometimes understanding the problem feels harder than solving it here. I don't know, the long statement really scares me. Yeah, like a bunch of CM problems do have some long statement, but like that's a different part. That's how like CF separates itself from like ad coder. Like ad coder usually has like 1 or 2 lines, but CF maybe 10 to 20 lines, and it could be a bit of confusing. So as I said, like you could just start by writing out the observations, and also you could like pick a sample and try to work through it, like you are given a particular sample and how what the problem exactly needs you to figure out from that particular like the input and all. So maybe sometimes usually this helps me. Apart from it, maybe the last few lines related to like the problem, maybe I would say like 2 to 3 lines above the constraints are sometimes usually like what all you require for solving a particular problem. But yeah, it could be like it is really scary for me sometimes as myself. Sometimes I cannot code myself. So, like Priyanshu, I would suggest like maybe if initially you are struggling with like coding the solution, maybe you could like pick some topics like the recursion or maybe even backtracking, and like these have some like large implementation and all. So, and maybe some DP as well. So you could try like solving those problems, as that will definitely help you like coding your solution. And like first initially you should try like as I said, like pointing out those observations. And maybe then you could like ask maybe someone like what all do I need, like how can I code. But I would say like for a particular topic wise, like recursion coding, recursion maybe a backtracking problem, is like the way to like improve your like coding skills and all, like particularly your implementation skills. Like apart from it, also you could focus on, let's say, like looking at other people's submissions as well. Like there are some neat tricks that I have learned by reading other people's solution, like through the code itself and not the editorial and all. So maybe you could try like reading the code as well. Did you ever worried about internship and placements in college, third year, fourth year? Yes, of course. I I am like I constantly got worried in my third year and fourth year, as like basically my college was a tier three college. Like I I wasn't scared for it like much throughout my third year. Like but in my fourth year I was like, wow, now it's almost like my end of college. Like how will I like get a internship and all? So I did started a bit practicing regarding it. Like I just through CPI got to know like a lot of people in the community, and so I would ask their suggestions, like how are they like applying and all, like what all things I need to learn and all, like how could I improve my resume, what all projects do I need, what all maybe what are things I need to learn regarding like CS fundamentals and all. When will hiring conditions get better? So, Sid, I would say like maybe you should not wait for hiring conditions getting better, and maybe you should focus more on improving yourselves so that the hiring conditions won't matter to you. And maybe you don't know, like it could get worse in the future, but if you like constantly like try to focus on improving your skill set, so it won't matter much. Like it may take a bit more time than usual, like it could take 1 or 2 years maybe more, but you would, like I would say, eventually able to succeed. What would be your advice for fresher to join TCS digital support or technical support engineer at a reputed product-based company? So I don't have much idea about like the technical support engineer. So like when I started applying, like I knew from the start, like my main goal was to uh, like not be a support and like focus myself on applying for the SD and most probably like the backend. So it depends on you constantly. Like if you are getting like a better role, but like initially if you join a company and like you are start working on a particular tech stack, so it does become a bit hard to like change it in the future. So it is like really crucial for you to like think it through and then only like choose like what you think is better for you, as you don't need to think it right in based on short term, and you should maybe focus maybe what are the uh, lo- long term, like if I choose the technical support engineer, like what would be the long term goal for it, what like whether I would get a promotion or what are the other options I would be able to explore regarding it. Any tips for managing CPN development? So I don't have much tips regarding it, as I focus myself more on like CP rather than on development. But I won't say that you should not focus on it, as development is like a crucial part for it. Maybe not like exactly learning the tech stack, as it could completely change if like when I was in college, I did maybe React and Node.js, but when I entered into a company, I my tech stack was Java. So it could vary from company to company, but more importantly, I would say, like, usually I find, like, for freshers, they don't exactly maybe require particular tech stack, but uh, like, what all projects you have made based on the tech stack, was it scalable enough? Was, yeah, are there like necessary error handlings? Is the code properly documented, and etc. So I would say, like, if you are like managing for CPN development, maybe you could like do it on a alternate day basis. Like, one day you could pick up CP and do a bunch of problems, and some other day you could do development and all. Or like, or you could like do those on the same day if you are able to manage it. Like, 3 hours I would do CP, and like maybe 1 to 2 hours I would do development. Although this does prove a bit like constrained, as you, when doing CP, there's not a particular like time bound for it. Like, you are not sure that if you will be able to solve a particular problem maybe in 1 or 2 hours or so. It could maybe take 3 and 4 hours. So I would say, like, doing on an alternate day basis would be like much more helpful. Sir, was Rapipay on campus for you? Yes. Any last minute roadmap for 4 years? So, as I would say, like, there are no roadmaps for it. So, like, CP is a time-taking process and also painstaking as well. So, like, for me, it took me almost around 3 to 4 years to achieve a master rating. So it completely depends on you, like, how are you focusing on your time. Maybe I didn't have like maybe good mentors, or maybe what all I need to like practice a particular, like, what all problems do I need to focus on, what all topics I need to focus on. So that like took most of my time. And like, if you are able to like get those, and maybe you could also achieve it, like 1600, like expert don't usually need any like advanced DSA and all. So I would say, like, focusing mainly on solving problems within a limited time. Like, maybe you could just track on, like, how much time I'm taking on solving A, B, C, and D, and maybe give a bunch of virtual contests and analyze, like, how much time I'm taking. Do I need to work on any particular problems? Do I need to like learn a few topics, etc.? How did you decide what to learn? So many fields to choose, like web app, ML, data science. So yeah, like, I didn't have much idea about development initially. So what I did was, like, I picked the easiest, and people used, like, my seniors or maybe people used to tell me like web was the easiest. So I just randomly picked it. But later on, as I went through the company, I realized, like, what is more important, like whether I need to work on web app, ML, data science. Like, these, like, when you enter a company, there are, like, as I am aware of it, like majorly 3 to 4 like fields. Like, if we separate data science and like the development part, so maybe there are four. There is this web development, then Android, iOS, and the backend. So I knew from the start, like, as I had a good problem solving, so I wanted to work on like the backend stuff, as I was not so good and my front end in particular. And like, if you have to just choose what to learn, maybe you could like start picking from any bunch of it. like you could start with the web and you could like explore like whether I'm enjoying it or not. Maybe like data analysis and like probability and etc are more of my like what I need to learn, or maybe what I am good at solving and etc. So if maybe you are in second third year, you could always change your track. Like bunch of my colleagues, they initially like joined my company as maybe a web developer or maybe Android or iOS, but later on they like switch their fields to like maybe data or maybe DevOps. So it's not, maybe you could just pick a like any fields, but later on you could like change it in the future. But just remember, don't take too long. Sir, will you also be targeting quants as you have such massive achievements? So maybe I am targeting like I'm usually aware that they usually hire from maybe like the top IITs or maybe the IITs. So I'm not sure if like someone me from like a third tier tier three college would able be able to crack it. But yes, I do consider it like targeting quants and all. How to develop implementation skills, sometimes implementation. So as I said, the best way to they are usually squarey. So I I would say I also hate like large implementation problems. like like back of my mind, I remember the last diff 3g was like a pain in the implementation. Like it had like 100 to 200 lines of code with LC and all. So I would suggest uh, maybe start with like if you have solved like recursion and backtracking, they won't be as much of a problem. But like you could like start with these problems, like the backtrackings, like backtracking, recursion. They do require a lot of implementation and all, and this is usually the easy part, and you will definitely like able to like get over it maybe in a month or two. The You will later realize like the hard part is actually coming up with the solution rather than the implementation. And apart from it, like the one other thing that I learned was whenever I did manage to solve a problem with like say some large implementation or all, I used to like go through my like the top participants like the LGMs and the GMs, or maybe some people I had like I filtered out and added in my friends. Like they had some really like clean implementation and all. So I used to learn from that code as well. Like how could I have avoided these like long implementation, and how could I optimize my code as well. So one thing I would say is like pick out a like bunch of LGMs and GMs. Like Jangly, I know it has like really clean implementations. Then there's tourist, and there's a one user with the name A underscore G. Like they have some really clean implemented code. And like earlier, I used to use a bunch of macros and all just to like get a better speed and like to avoid writing long codes. But eventually, I shifted to writing like uh, non-template code and just write from the scratch like with the basic headers and all. Any last or general tips for CP? So as I'm giving this session, I would just say uh, like maybe sessions could help you in getting a different perspective of how different people like struggle through their own failures and maybe their setbacks, but every person has a different set of like difficulties and all. So you could definitely try joining these sessions, but in the long run I would say like maybe focus more on what are you lacking rather than just like listening to other people's achievement, as it is more of their journey and yours is a different one. So ev- so only you can realize like what all, like what are your like setbacks or what are your difficulties that are you facing, and maybe you are the only one you could work on it. Using segment tree template gives flag, how to avoid this? Yeah, I mean segment tree template uh, gives flag, like maybe you could just create your own segment tree template maybe. Mm. Okay, so I think so. uh, Welcome as well. So thank you all for joining this session. I hope I could like give you some motivation and like on solving problems and all. And at last I would just say like focus more on solving problems and like focus more on solving hard problems, not even the easy ones, rather than just like maybe listening to other people's like their achievements and failures. You could sometimes like attend these sessions for motivation and all, but in the long run it is you only who could help yourself, of course. So thank you all, and if you have any doubts you could reach out to me on Codeforces. My ID is Milind0110, and you could also connect to me on Discord as well with the same name. Thank you everyone. I hope you achieve more great ratings.